Hi, my name is Simon Hedley, known to my clients and partners as a strategic alchemist and an ultimate connector. I'm a chartered accountant who brings together and bridges the worlds of business philosophy, finance, marketing, optimization, ontology, and so much more. Always focused on one thing, the simple idea that can make the difference to people and projects so we can tip the scales in their favor and get them complete. Pause, Stop, Reset is all about the three little words that can make the difference. They have for me and my clients, and I hope they will for you too. During the show, you'll get to learn about my guests' real-life experiences and the insights and lessons they've learned as they've navigated the resets in their personal and business lives, which you'll be able to leverage yourself. So let's start the show. Hello, I'm Simon Hedley, and welcome to this episode of Pause, Stop, Reset. Today, I am absolutely thrilled to introduce you to somebody who inspired me long before I ever got to know him personally. And since then, I've come to admire him all the more, and that is the one and only Dr. Ernesto Sirolli. He's a globally recognized thought leader in entrepreneurship and economic development with over 40 years of transformative work. He's the founder of the Sirolli Institute, helping communities worldwide unlock their entrepreneurial potential, and a real pioneer of the enterprise facilitation approach, empowering people to follow their passions and build thriving, sustainable ventures. You may also know him for his amazing TED Talks, one of which is called Want to Help Someone, Shut Up and Listen, which has resonated with millions around the world. And it's actually how I first came across him as somebody to inspire me to speak better and communicate better. His insights have not only impacted the lives of countless entrepreneurs, but also deeply inspired my own journey. So I'm honored to have him with us today. Without further ado, Ernesto, welcome to Pause, Stop, Reset.
Hey, Simon. So nice to be with you. You still think of me now and then, so
I do. Great. I still talk about your talk. I still refer to your talk. Literally, I've been telling people, go watch this talk for ages. It is an absolutely mind-boggling talk for a couple of reasons. And if you haven't seen it, check it out. Shut Up and Listen. Then there's the sequel, both in how you communicated, which is phenomenal. That's how I first came across it. Anthony Wade, Dr. Voice, was like, look, you want to be a speaker, go watch these great talks. And that was the one he referenced. But also the content, which is really powerful and relevant to this, by the way. If those early people out in Africa had learned to pause and listen, stop and listen, they could have avoided the hippo problem. But we're jumping ahead of ourselves. So for people that may not know you yet or haven't kept up with your resets, like who are you, Ernesto, and what are you focused on today?
Italian born. I was very, very fortunate when I was young because my father became the head of radiology. He was a radiologist. He became the head of the department of radiology at the civil hospital in Benghazi, Libya. And when I was 8 years old, I went with my father, with my family to Libya. We lived there for 3 years. And from age 8 to age 11, I studied in a multinational school. I studied Arabic, I studied English and Italian. And all my friends were from, oil had been discovered. I'm talking about year 1958 to year 1961. That tells you how old I am. But Libya was still under the control of a Turkish royal family, the Idrisi family. And all my school friends were English, French, American, Saudi, Maltese, Greeks, Turks. And my two best friends, one was a Palestinian Muslim and the other one was an Israeli Jew. And we had 3 bicycles and we were inseparable. And so it was like a joke, a Christian and a Jew and a Muslim, on 3 bikes. And that changed my life, really, that experience, because when I went back to Italy, Italy was a bit too monocultural for me. Monocultures are very dangerous because they believe in their own bullshit. And so the Italians, the French, the English, they really, they speak Italian, dress Italian, believe that Italy is the greatest place on earth. So the French, so the Brits. And when you live in truly a multicultural community like I experienced, then when you go back, you feel like you always want to escape back to do international work. So I prepared for I prepared for the diplomatic corps. And so I kept studying languages. I studied political sciences at the university, which was the thing to do. But then I was offered a job when I was 21 to start to work in Africa. And so from 1971 to 1977, I worked for an agency of technical cooperation with African countries. And my nickname was Tarmac because I was always the guy getting the flu shots and all the vaccines and going to travel to look at our projects in Africa. And I worked in Zambia, Kenya, Ivory Coast, Algeria, Somalia, Mali in projects that the Italian government had, in a sense, created, and we were providing the personnel and some of the support, the logistical support for the projects. So where I really started to see how silly our international aid projects were. I became disillusioned. I left Italy. I did a PhD on a different way to look at development work. And I came up with some different ideas. And invented a new professional figure that we named an enterprise facilitator many years ago. Worked in some 28 countries in the world, trained some 400 enterprise facilitators who have helped to start some 65,000 companies without ever telling people what to do, but how to do it, and without ever giving money to people. Just helping people to transform their own ideas, their own passion into a way of making a living out of their passion. What do you do if you have a overriding skill and passion? How can you transform that into a way of making a living? So that's what we have done, lived in many different places, but the last 28 years in America, the last 21 in California. And we still do this. We still, if invited, we go around the world and we teach local leaders how to capture the passion, the intelligence, the energy of the local people. So that's me. I've written a couple of books. I'm writing another one. And I've given 7-8 TEDx talks, but the most famous one, the one that you alluded to, the one titled Shut Up and Listen, was a TEDx, which is a local, regional, independently organized event. But I was lucky enough that the headquarters in New York, they saw my TEDx, my independently organized talk, and they were kind enough, curious enough, intrigued enough to take that TEDx and put it on their platform. And just to give you an idea, there've been maybe 30,000 TEDx given around the world, but only maybe 2,000 on their platform. And so from the moment they put me on the platform, their platforms, I started to have 100,000 viewers a month. And my life has never been the same. And the irony is that I did not want to give that talk, but that's another story. So I stop now.
Oh, well, the pausing, not stopping, right? So the first thing, you get why I love this man. There's a generosity. I remember when I first reached out to you, I was expecting, like you normally get as somebody of your stature, the team to say, thank you for your interest. What's the speaker fee? Blah, blah, blah. And this wasn't even for a talk. It was just like, you were so open to communication, which blew me away because it's very rare. Often when people have got somewhere, they shut down. They're like, what's the agenda? And that we had really real conversations at a time of going through really challenging things on the health side and other things. But also even the rigor with which you're communicating about, like, it wasn't a TED Talk, it was TEDx, it's independent. That I think is part of the DNA of you, which I think is what's allowed you to do what you've done. And it's really curious because I'm also present to, you've been working in this field for a huge amount of time. Most people know about the well-known names in entrepreneurship. Some of our friends like Gary and others who are very well-known in the Western world for marketing and business, and Rory Sutherland, those kind of guys. But your work isn't that well-known, even though it's well-known. Is that true for you? Am I misinterpreting? Because like I wish I'd found you when I was 15, 16. Your work was already out there, but it hasn't been taken top down and deployed the way it should. And it reminds me of Bucky Fuller's work a bit. Is that true, or am I sort of just young and naive there, like around the work and how it's well understood and rolled out?
I feel that there are some people who spend more time self-publicizing themselves than doing the work. I prefer to be doing the work. And I love it when people then talk about the work that I've done, instead of talking about me because I'm talking a lot. I mean, there are some very well-known speakers nowadays that if you look at their previous life before they were speakers, they had nothing. They were, they have, marketing agency executives who know very well how to use the media. But my point is, I don't want to be remembered for somebody like that. I want to be remembered for, I'd rather be remember for, a doctor who went to Africa and did some work there, that be remembered for somebody who created a fad, because, fads then disappear. There's nothing left. We don't have in our bones, in my organization, we don't have a single branding bone. We don't have any, marketing, social media person that works curating our image. And so what we got is what I have is some. I'll tell you what gives me enormous satisfactions. Okay, so imagine this: somebody who's running an organization that is linking his country to American entrepreneurs. And so they have this kind of mixed chamber of commerce. They invited me to give a talk at the Denver annual conference. And then this person, who is a foreign executive who lives in America, had to come to the capital here in California, where I live, in Sacramento. And so he came and they called me to say, I will be in Sacramento. I said, let's have coffee. So I had never met him physically. I had spoken, by Zoom at his conference. And he was very, very kind. And we had a cup of coffee. And he told me this thing that I wanted to repeat to you. So he says, my wife asked me who I was going to meet. And so I told my wife, by the way, the wife works at the United Nations in Washington, D.C., the United Nations building, a United Nations organization. So my wife said, who are you going to see in Sacramento? And this friend said, I'm going to meet Ernesto Sirolli. And she said, and who is Ernesto Sirolli? And he said, oh, you remember that amazing story about the hippos? They ate all the tomatoes. He's the guy, who told the story. And she said, oh, come on. No, it's not. No. The story of the hippos and the tomatoes is a meme at the United Nations. Everybody knows this story. It's our story. It's part of the United Nations culture. We tell people, beware of the hippos when you go to a new country with your idea. And so this guy said to the wife, no, he's the guy who told the story. Look at it, 2012. And she said, oh my God, but that's a legend. So I'd rather be that person, And I go around the world. There are people now and then that they listen, I'm talking, and then they stop. They look at me and say, it's you. I say, yeah, it's me. So, no, I prefer that kind of recognition, the recognition of somebody who really has done the suffering, Simon. Let's talk seriously.
Yeah.
You can fake it. The Americans say fake it until you make it. I think that is bullshit. I think that you fake it, you will be found out. This is more, for me, what I do is me. I mean, it's different. I mean, I'm all in. This is my very essence, what I do.
I love that. And look, you can get why I wanted to have the conversation with you, because part of what I got frustrated by, right, is trying to learn entrepreneur. Well, even when I started trying to do business things and little ventures and projects, it wasn't even called entrepreneurship in the UK. It was just doing something. And so clearly said, they're famous for having conversations and selling books. There's a whole racket and conversation about that game. It's not bad and wrong. It's just not necessarily the reality of what's actually real on the ground. And maybe just out of your words, rather than me butchering it, your model for entrepreneurship, those sort of three roles, is quite interesting, right? Could you speak to that for a minute? And then I want to go somewhere in the conversation. You talk about how to do a business.
But before I go there, I would like, when you first told me what the topic of the conversation would be, I immediately remember something that has been very important to me and that I use it all the time, and I would like to share it with your audience. Here in California, I have met a legendary individual. Legendary because this person has always been involved in venture capital funds in Silicon Valley. He was, as a young man, he was the son of one of the partners of Wang Computers, probably considered one of the very first microprocessors company in Silicon Valley. So he was born in Silicon Valley. He is one of those guys who have been in, Sandy Hills in terms of venture capital. And this man and his companies have invested in 600 Silicon Valley startups.
Wow. And
they've been first in Google and Apple, you name it. And every time Bob Bozeman, that's his name, every time Bob Bozeman comes to visit, I love to sit at his feet, because he's not the history of Silicon Valley. He's the chronicle of Silicon Valley. We talk about Bill Gates. He talks about when Billy came to see us. So this is a living, walking, humble, delightful, legendary individual. And when I met him the first time, he was giving a talk at a group of entrepreneurs, and he gave us the definition of entrepreneur. And I would like to share it with your audience because he gave me shivers. Entrepreneur, according to Bob Bozeman, is the person who wakes up in the middle of the night with a panic attack because he does not know how to pay the salaries at the end of the month. That's the definition of an entrepreneur. And oh my God, he looked at us and said, if you have never had nights like those, you're not an entrepreneur. Entrepreneurs are not managers. Entrepreneurs, there is no space between their personal life and what they do work-wise. So it's absolutely extraordinary to understand the level of stress, the level of anxiety, the level of fear, the level of commitment. And when people said to me when I started many, many years ago to talk about entrepreneurs requiring passion, in Australia, I was laughed at because in the early 80s, nobody ever had mentioned passion when you were talking about business. And they would say, oh, you Italians, and they were thinking about passion, the mandolin and the flowers, you Italians, oh, passionate man, all this bullshit. But passion comes from the Latin for to suffer. Passio is the passion of Christ on the cross. Being passionate means that you are prepared to suffer for what you believe. So when Bob Bozeman basically confirmed the struggle, the solitude, the cold sweat in the middle of the night, it's called the elephant on the chest. And when I meet entrepreneurs, I can talk to them because I have had all of that. So, your conversation about, pause and stop and, oh my God, Simon, you have it so right. And nobody talks about it. But I can tell you that one of the legends of Silicon Valley is there with you. Absolutely, completely with you.
I love that you get it right and so deeply. And it is, again, this is your conversation, not mine, but I did 10 years in banking. I'd done stuff at university, which was entrepreneurial. It wasn't until I left that space and really went full in and had the challenges of the marketplace and the people you think you can count on that you can't, and get eaten alive by crazy people and vice versa. It is those sleepless nights where you're like, what am I going to do? And there is no answer, and you're being with it in that suffering, and you still keep going. Right now, there's so many entrepreneurs, really passionate people that are trying to find a new way to do business, that have realized that so much of this marketing noise is BS and it isn't working. Like, it just isn't working.
Absolutely. And what is BS is all these accelerators, incubators, genius labs. It's all crap because what they do, they use the MBA model, which is a Master in Business Administration. That's a Master in Business Administration. That's to train administrators. Administrators are not entrepreneurs. Administrators have to know a little bit about product marketing, finance, a little bit, so that they can pick the right passionate, maniacal product person, the most committed, passionate marketing executive, the most absolutely fantastic finance person. But they're using the MBA on entrepreneurs. Are you nuts? Entrepreneurs run away from, Steve Jobs never got an MBA. He would laugh at those people. Bill Gates left Harvard University. I mean, are you kidding me? You want me, Steve Jobs, to learn everything about HR and accounting so that then I can become the CEO? I don't give a damn. I'm the best at reading, the product, and what people want. And you want me to stop doing what is my competitive advantage, what I have the deepest inside of me, to go and learn to do badly what I can hire somebody to do? So, I found that it's absurd. And also entrepreneurship in the hands of academics, in the hands of people who have never had the cold sweats at night. How can you put the life of passionate entrepreneurs in the hands of people on, all their lives on salaries? They will not be able to run, like in Australia. I lived in Australia 20 years. I'm married to an Australian. In Australia, they said, those people will not be able to run a brothel in a mining camp. And you want to give the future, the sweat, the tears, the passion of entrepreneurs to people on a fixed salary? You know that when we created my organization here in America, we created, on the advice of American friends, who wanted me to stay, we created a 501c3, which is the status of a charity, which means that people can donate money and they can deduct that the money from their own taxation. Well, guess what? We are a 501c3 organization who never gets donation because I refuse to take donations. How on earth can we go around the world to tell people that they can transform their passion into a way to make a living if we cannot do it ourselves? What kind of credibility could we have? There's no credibility. Entrepreneurs will look at you to say, you are telling me what to do when your salary is guaranteed by donations, and you want to teach me how to make a living in the streets? We have been making money every month for the last 27 years. And at one stage, we had 15 people, and it was $120,000 per month in salaries. So, you cannot then create organizations attached to universities that say, okay, now you've done all your study, then you've done your master, then you do a PhD, and then you do 2 years paying us into an incubator so that we look after you the way we were looking after you. You pay us and we will babysit you for another couple of years. So they become this, it's so upsetting to me because nowhere in Silicon Valley we ever spoke about incubation, acceleration. It was people in garages.
Yeah.
And look what they've done. People in garages. So I think that we are, in a sense, doing a disservice to the entire category. And to tell you how abysmal it is, I yet have to find a single professor of entrepreneurship. And this is for real. I mean, I promise you, Simon, it's now 40 years.
Wow.
I have never met a single professor of entrepreneurship who knew where the word entrepreneur came from. They think it's French. I swear, they believe that entrepreneur is a French word. And if it's a French word, how come we have an identical word in Italian and in Spanish? If 3 dialects have a similar sounding word, there must be a mother tongue, correct?
Yeah.
So guess what the mother tongue of French, Spanish, and Italian is? It's Latin.
Salve amiche.
Latin. And so there is the Latin word is entrepreneur in Latin, intraprendere, is composed of 3 words. And the 3 words are intra, I-N-T-R-A, pre, P-R-E, intrapre, hendere. And these 3 words mean, intra means among, pre means the first, hendere is a Indo-European root of a word that means to get. So the Latin word intraprendente is the first among others to get it. And it's a quality of the soul. You are born. For the Latin, it's like saying you are courageous, you are pious, you are timid. It's a quality of your soul, and it cannot be taught. For the Latin, to be born enterprising is a quality of the soul. So the idea that you teach entrepreneurship is the biggest load of BS. You can help. And by the way, for the Latin, had no connotation at all with business. You could be a mother who's enterprising in the way she prepares the kids for school in the morning. You could be a nun who is enterprising the way she organizes the meal for the convent. So what I'm saying is is the ignorance, is the absolute, give me the 7 rules let's do 2 semesters in entrepreneurship. Let's train people for. You can't train people for life. Are you joking? With rules, regulations, when everything is absolutely fantastic in your business, your partner runs away with your wife.
Happened to a friend of mine. Exactly that.
And my point is that, like life. So, tell me, tell me about all this pitching competition, and tell me, how do you pick winners in business? If we could pick winners in business, the stock market would not exist, because everybody would only invest in the winning company.
Yeah. So let's pause, stop, reset, right? Because firstly, love it. This is why I wish I'd met you years ago, and it's all perfect, right? Because if I hadn't had that suffering, I wouldn't be able to sit there and go, this is wisdom. I'd have gone, no, there's a book and 3-step process. I'd have bought the BS. And I did, scarily, when I left the banking space, I wasn't like the billionaire banking guy. I met all these entrepreneur training guys in the UK and the US, and they seemed to have it handled. They had their books, they had their stages. And so they seemed to be the guys to follow that are this certainty and confidence, like, the guys in your hippo story, Ernesto, like they had, this is the answer. So you don't know.
Yeah.
So what do we do instead, right? Is it, I love how you said it, there's like a quality of the soul around this activity, this work to do this. Does everybody have it? Does some have it, not have it?
There are 2 things you can do in life. You can follow your passion. But if you don't have your own passion, if you don't have your own drive, help somebody with passion. Because the moment you start to help somebody who has a passion, you discover who you are. So what I say to people is that if you don't know what your passion is, just start to help somebody who has the drive, the passion, who wants to do something. And you can then do the finance for this person. You can do the marketing for this person. But the engine is this comes from within, not from without. So the theory that I'm espousing about entrepreneurship is this. You're born entrepreneur. You see things that other people don't see. And as soon as you see it, now this is like a curse and a blessing. Because the curse is that if you don't know what to do with that passion, you get suicidal. And you get so depressed because you say, how come I see it and nobody else sees? And when I speak to my friends with my parents, they tell me, don't be stupid. So it's a curse in that regard. But it's also a blessing because the moment that you understand the secret of going from your passion to create a sustainable business, then you become a successful world changer. Because whatever you do, if you are financially successful, it means that you've been able to commercialize your idea, and from an invention, your idea has become an innovation. And the innovation then it means that now you have something that people like, people want to purchase this, and they like and they want to purchase because it's useful to them. So you are improving the quality of life for people worldwide. So you have a market of 8 billion people, and you can become incredibly wealthy. But let's not talk about money, because the idea for me was never, ever, ever to teach people to become rich. My idea was, how do you become the person who can look in the mirror and say, I've done the best that I could have done with what I was given. And I've been able to make a living returning to the world the gifts that I received at birth. So I studied psychology instead of studying business. And the psychology that I studied was the psychology of growth, developmental psychology, humanistic psychology, call it the way you want it. But I became really entranced by psychologists, humanistic psychologists, Carl Rogers, Abraham Maslow, Eric Fromm, Adler, the post-Jungian, the the post-behaviorists. And these are all people who have one thing in common. They believe that there is no need to motivate people because every single healthy human being in the world wants to improve his life or her life. So there's no need to motivate anybody. Everybody has the dream to be better off financially initially. And then as soon as you have food every day, you have a roof over your head, you have basic needs satisfied, you have security. As soon as you have this very, very humble, you have a little, a mini, a mini apartment with, you have enough to feed yourself. You have the security of knowing that you will be okay daily. Then immediately our brain needs more things, and they're all psychological needs. After the basic materialistic needs, it's all psychological needs. You want companionship, you want love, you want self-respect, you want to really finally become the person who can look in the mirror and like what he or she sees. You want to become the man that you ought to become, the man that you can become. You can become the person of your dream. Imagine that. So the work is all from inside out. Some of us have the entrepreneurial character, that is a gift, but some of us are technicians, and they're very, very, very fortunate when they befriend someone who is this hungry, starry-eyed, someone who's seen something that nobody else has seen. And then you say to this person, may I help you? And in my life would not be what is without, my companion, my wife, my friend, who 40 years ago, she listened to what I wanted to do. And she said, yeah, makes sense. I help you. And, there are the story of Silicon Valley is the story of friendships. Because if you look at the success of every single company, it was always 2, 3, 4 people who had no money, decided to help each other. And so one was technical, the other one was market. And then they found the finances, because it's irresistible when you have a wonderful, wonderful product that is described nicely by somebody who takes it to the market. Wozniak, without Steve Jobs, would have never done what he did. Bill Gates, Wozniak, so the stories are amazing. The stories are amazing. Richard Branson, in his autobiography, Screw It, Let's Do It. That's the title of Richard Branson's autobiography. In the first page of his book, he never said I, and he wrote we 32 times in the first page of his autobiography, because he wasn't alone. He had his best friend, his best companion, and he regretted for the rest of his life that he was not able to hang on that friendship. But he started his first company with a friend and his mother.
Yeah. I've got a simple question. I want to go deep on the you that you are, right? And if you're listening, you like, this is the gold stuff that you can't fake. This is lived material. And I'm very grateful, Ernesto, for so many reasons. Given your background and your frame of how you look at things, what is marketing in that context? And it sounds silly, but like, what is marketing when you talk about the marketing piece?
There are 3 characters in the drama of business. There is the person who loves the product. So we call them the P. The P person is the one who is in love, completely absorbed, enthralled by what he is building or what she is creating. And these people are absolutely phenomenal. The world will not be what it is without the P. However, the P have each of these characters, the P, the M, and the F, are like a coin with two faces. And what happened is that if you leave them to their own devices, they self-destruct, because one side of the coin is the capacity to create the world that we inhabit. Everything around you has been created by a P. Your computer, your desk, your chair, everything that you are, your clothing, everything, but also your doctor, your teacher, they're all P, product people, okay? They love to deliver the service or to make the product. The other side of the coin is that they are so in love with their creature, with their creation, that they fall in love with their creation. So the products become their babies. The moment that you are so attached to your product, you cannot take it to the market, expose it to the world and to criticism without getting profoundly upset by the refusal. So if you get an engineer with a new gadget to go and knock at doors to say, would you like this? After the first 50 rejections, the engineer will stop knocking at doors, because every time his idea, his product is rejected, it's like a stab in the back. And the real product person hates to see his baby being criticized, laughed at, abused. No, this is the best product in the world because I dedicated my life to develop it. So what happens is that they have to meet the marketing people. The marketing people are the people who love people, not products. They want to find out what people need, and then they want to give to people exactly what can solve their problems. So the marketing people are absolutely exquisite, because they know that they have to knock at 100 doors. They have to have 99 rejections. But for them, the rejection is the beginning of the conversation. They don't get upset. They want to know what people want, because then they go back to the company and they say they want a pink. And the product person says, no, we work for the army. Our backpacks are made for the special services, for the paratroopers. And we have to be camouflage color. And the marketing person says, but lots of women now, they like to hike, they like to mountaineer, and they want the backpacks in colors, pastel colors, pinks and blues. So do you want to make money, or do you want to, work for the army? So the marketing people are the people who take the invention from the laboratory, the grapes from the field. These are the people who connect the passion of the inventor, the passion of the producer, with the market, with the people who are looking for products, who are looking for something that is important for them. And so the other side of the coin, the marketing people, then they become so passionate about what people need, is that they start to give it for free. They start to promote stuff that they don't have, that costs too much. By themselves, the marketing people go bankrupt because they haven't got a clue about the necessities of only selling stuff that costs less than what they're selling for. So enter the financial people. And the financial people are the people who see the world differently. And these people, the finance people, they come into the shop and they see the most wonderful, wonderful, wonderful displays of teddy bears in the windows. And they say, how come you have all these teddy bears? And people say, oh, because, my daughter makes them, and people love the display. I said, but what do you make money from? Or greeting cards. Where are the greeting cards in the shop? At the back. For God's sake, why don't you at this how much money you make with the teddy bear? Oh, we don't make any money with the teddy bears. Takes too long to make. Say, okay, well, why don't you then attract people with the teddy bear? But for God's sake, put the card at the front of the shop if that's what makes you money. Remember, you have to make money. This is not a charity. This is a business. How are you going to pay yourself? So the finance person is the person who comes and tells the product people and the marketing people that they should sell what makes them money, not what they're in love with, and not to give it for free to the people. So what we teach is that we call this the Trinity of Management. And what we teach is that it's not what you have, it's what people need. Because if people don't want it and they don't need it, the fact that you have invented something, you could be like Nikola Tesla, who invented things that are still not utilized because he was a genius 100 years before his time. So, yes, he invented and he told everybody that electricity could be broadcast. But very few Teslas in California use a mat under the car to simply broadcast induction electricity. Some do. But for many people, it's still puzzling. They can't believe that you can have your television set without any cord attached to any plugs. And yet, that's the technology that Nikola Tesla promoted on the grand scale, but nobody's using it. So what I want to say is, hey, remember, if you are the passionate entrepreneur, you have to decide who are you in the Trinity. Are you the product person, the marketing person, or the finance person? For God's sake, stop. Try to learn to do badly what you hate. Stay with your competitive advantage. And what I teach is only do in your life what you love to do, but surround yourself with people who can do beautifully what you hate doing.
I love it. Love it. Very, very clear. It's also where I think the market is screwy because what they talk about marketing is not that. It's like how to brainwash people to click buttons. So with all these resets, with all these entrepreneurs you've been working with all these amazing experiences, you must have had some times that were really challenging. Some of your pause, stop, reset moments.
Oh my God. Of course.
Which were the hardest and how did you navigate them? Like, how did you get through them?
I remember COVID was for a training organization where we would travel the world to be in front of town hall meetings where we would encourage local leadership to employ a full-time enterprise facilitator to teach the Trinity of Management to every entrepreneur in the community who wanted to learn. For us, when we discovered that we could not train in person any longer, it was like being at sea and you see this massive storm coming. And I remember that reset required, the image that came to my mind was the one of being on a boat, a sailing boat at sea in a storm. And I remember telling, my colleagues, my partner, we need to batten the hatches. We need to go through the storm, and we need to keep our sanity. And what we did, we were supposed to go to Italy from California to meet 65 entrepreneurs we had trained in this methodology to find out what they had done with the Trinity of Management. And we had organized a beautiful event in Venice. And we were supposed to have a prolonged, an entire day of testimonials and people telling their own stories, and then dinner, and then more celebrations. And we received a call from the organizer to say, Italy is dying. I mean, Italy was the first, you remember? Italy was the first European
it was really bad
nation. And so they canceled that event. And the entrepreneur said, why don't we meet via Zoom? And I said, what's Zoom? So
wow.
he was an IT guy. So he organized for all of us to download the proper stuff. And we had the first meeting. At that meeting, there were some 40 Italian entrepreneurs. And then we decided to have meetings every Thursday night. And we had 128 Thursdays. We worked together for 2 years for free, in line. And we had 400 entrepreneurs coming to those meetings. We call them aperitivo, apericol, the call with the aperitivo. And of course, in Italy it was 6 o'clock at night. So everybody showed up with a glass, with the
Cocktail.
spritz, so with a cocktail, a cocktail, the way you say, and of course for us was 9 o'clock in the morning, 8 o'clock in the morning in California, so no drinks. But we met more than 400 entrepreneurs in those 2.5 years, and they're still friends. And what we did was facilitation with people who were absolutely desperate. Talking about despair and reset, we had fashion industry entrepreneurs in Italy saying, who are we going to sell to? What are we going to do with our lives? In February 2020, despair was palpable. And what we said to those entrepreneurs was, instead of hiding, I said, I remember saying at that first meeting, I said, instead of hiding in your cellar, like during the war, you can do two things. You can hide in the cellar, hoping that the bomb will not hit you, or jump in the trenches and start to help. It's your choice. My advice to you is that instead of, cowering in the cellar, I suggest to you that you start to help people who are struggling. And have you called any of your customers to find out how they're going? You are a hairdresser. Hundreds of people come to talk to you, and you have been there for years and years. Have you called a single one of your customers to say, how are you? What can I do to help you now that you have to have Zoom conversations and you do not know how to put the color in your hair? You don't know how to look good on screen. We turn a generation of desperate entrepreneurs in proactive people reaching out, helping others to do well. And the stories were amazing. We had 3 of those girls, all in the fashion industry. They said, we spoke to each other. We called some customers. They need face masks. So we have retooled our T-shirt company to make, face masks. We had stories about a guy with the tourist industry in Venice to say, oh, so maybe this is a good time to get to do that web app for virtual guiding, so that when this will be over, we will have something in Japanese, in Chinese, that we can then speak to every hotel in Venice and offer as part of the package. When people buy a stay, they get the free app, so that they can go around Venice in their own language and listen to the secrets of the best spots to see Venice. So it was a time of terrible crisis that taught us a lot. What do you do when there is the storm outside? So there was one thought. The other thought was, there have been times when things have been very, very hard, and financial problems, contracts that take forever to sign a contract. And so you wake up in the morning with nothing to look forward to. And you feel like, oh my God, I don't even want to get out of bed. And in those situations, I remember the words of an ultra marathoner. This is a guy who used to do those marathons, which are 160 miles, but not in the plain. This was a guy who was doing ultra marathons in the mountains. So he was going through mountain peaks by himself in competitions that require these hikes for, 100, 150, 160 miles mountaineering. So somebody asked him, how do you do it? There must be times when you are cold, miserable, exhausted, and there is another peak in front of you. How do you do it? And he said, and I'll never forget this phrase. He said, I've learned to transform every emotion, pain, solitude, hunger, despair. I have learned to transform every single emotion in one step forward. And that to me was like salvation, because you have no idea how many times, Simon, I just went through the motion of keep moving. Dress up, you shave, you dress, you keep going. And round the corner, there is somebody says, oh, so good to see you. I was thinking about you, I need some help. Can you help me? And here's the new contract. So entrepreneurs learn that. We learn it, I have been an entrepreneur now for self-employed, basically, forever. My last employer was, early 80s. So I've been a forever entrepreneur. And I had a very, very competent consultant who was working for mining companies all his life. All of a sudden, he decided to set up a consultancy firm. So he leaves his full-time job. He's always been employed full-time. He leaves and he calls me. And it was 2 weeks into his entrepreneurial enterprise. And he said to me, how do you do it? How can you know that you are going to make enough money to pay the rent? And I laughed and laughed. And I said, it's like the shopkeepers. You go there and you ask yourself, how do they know that people will come through the door? See, how can you have a life that is completely, utterly out of your control? Because you don't know whether people will come through the door. How do you keep your sanity? And that is where the real entrepreneur emerge, because if you don't have that kind of passion for what you do, determination to do it, you die of fear. If you have never met an entrepreneur, if you have never seen people who can live the way we entrepreneurs live, you're terrified. How do you know that this contract will happen? So what has to happen is that you have to truly go through the motion, and you discover that you have to have 30 conversations to have 7 possible deals, 5 probable deals. You have to keep at it. And then you have your contracts, you have your prospect, you have your reputation, and but at the same time, if you're not resilient, the word that is very fashionable nowadays is grit. If you don't have that stamina, then you will be terrified.
Yeah,
really, really scared.
And you mentioned, for you personally, is the thing I get you've got this really amazing multicultural life. You've been out to Africa, you've lived and sort of built it that way. But I get a sense that Martha, this partner of yours in life and business, has she been a big part of that, of sort of helping you on that?
Absolutely. It's like, I in Italy, I love to tease the Italian audience, because I ask the Italian audience, who was the first, accountant of Enzo Ferrari? It was his mother, la signora Adalgisa. But in Italy, they don't teach that because it's embarrassing. See, because Enzo Ferrari is the macho image of, Italy. Ferrari is the sex, basically. You look at the Ferrari, you already know who drives it. Somebody who needs, something to help his virility. Ferrari is all about this cult, of machismo. So imagine the Italians, when you tell them that first was his wife, his mother, and then was his wife, people say, "Oh my God, how come? How come?" Because Enzo Ferrari, could have never done what he did without his mother and without his wife. So let's be real. It's a question of personalities. I think that my wife, if I put her on a stage with 2,000-3,000 people without notes, I think that she will be concerned. She will be scared to do that. But I'm scared to do what she does. Because if you send me in a bureaucratic office to try to get an approval for us to work with Iran, I would rather kill myself to do that. But my wife does it. She goes through, the State Department and she fills all the forms. She speaks to everybody. She, and she gets things done that for me are unthinkable. I would never do that. Never.
Priceless people. They're the hardest thing to find. I know so many entrepreneurs that have that passion piece, but the marketing bit they've got and the finance bit they haven't got. And I know I want to be honorable of your time, right? We could spend hours talking. Maybe another time we can get back on the phone and do this. I'm really loving it. But for those entrepreneurs that are really at that breaking point, right? Especially the ones that are like, I remember being 18, 19 years old, had nothing, but there was more willing to risk because you haven't got anything and you don't know better. You have that youthful energy and naivety. When somebody is they've got a couple of kids, they're worried about losing the house and everything going down. When did they not quit? But there's a great book by Seth Godin, like The Dip, right? Sometimes the entrepreneur should keep going. And sometimes it's like, stop trying to sell chocolate teapots. I love with your focus, it's like, what do people need and that creativity that comes in? I hear the value of those connections, both inner circle connections and masterminds you can work with. And I really get that facilitating. But if they're really listening in and they're like, I don't know what to do, and I go help people, I really get that. But if they're kind of like, what do I do now?
Before giving up, they have to honestly look at themselves in the mirror and say, am I doing beautifully what I love to do? Have I ever given other people permission to represent me? I have worked with many, many artists, and they suffer enormously because they don't understand that it's not the quality of your art that sells your art. They really believe that people they see their paintings and they absolutely want to pay $4 million for that painting. It's not true. Because if the agent of Picasso would have told Picasso that the American heiress bought the painting and paid $4 million for a Picasso because the colors in the painting matched the color of the new couch, Picasso would have killed himself. But people buy art for completely different reasons from what the artists think. So you need to have an agent who represents your art. And what I said to solitary, broke, desperate entrepreneurs with a passion, what I said to them is that do not confuse your passion for what you do with the passion for the business that will sell what you do. And I give you an example. I had a 46-year-old Canadian entrepreneur speaking to me in the mountains of the Kootenays outside of Vancouver. And this guy, the meeting we had was at a cafe. And we started to talk about, he was told that I was setting up an enterprise facilitation project in the community. So this guy came to talk to me. And when I explained the Trinity of Management, he started to cry. And he told me that he had set up a company that had failed, that after 5 years, he started again and set up another company that failed. And when the second company failed, his wife and kids left him. And now he's alone, start again a third time. And because of the horror that he went through before, he did some self-analysis and discovered that he did not understand finances. So what he does, he starts to try to learn about finances. He gets QuickBooks. He starts to try to look after the finances. And what he does by doing that, he ignores his area of competitive advantage, which was the product, and he's about to go bankrupt again. So when he heard me tell him that he should only do what he loves, what he was born to do, but he should create a team that does beautifully what he doesn't love to do, he said to me, I should have met you 20 years ago. My advice to the people who are listening, if you're desperate right now, is probably because you are alone or you are surrounded by people who are the wrong people. Maybe you are an engineer surrounded by engineers. That's a formula for disaster. You have 4P, no M, no F. 4 product people, no marketing, no finance. So what you should do before you give up, you should do a self-analysis and say, am I being true to myself? Do I really, really love to do? Would I do what I'm doing for the rest of my life, 8 hours a day? If the answer is no, then stop. If the answer is yes, I love what I'm doing, but I'm terribly unsuccessful, you are unsuccessful not because of what you do. You are unsuccessful because you don't have a person who takes your product or service, find out whether people want the product or what color they want the product. So you are probably desperate at this moment because you are alone.
A lot of depth there. And I think that's where we sort of started this conversation with sort of the marketing BS. You get these desperate entrepreneurs. I just want to help bring my product to market. And they're almost the easy picking to go, yes, for just $10,000, but no guarantees. And it murders them and the ideas. And it's hard. It's really, really hard. And what you're talking about, I've had good days and bad days. And the other thing is this thing about trying to like manage life to safety. You know, I talked about in my last book, Ernesto, we can't even get the trains to run on time in the UK, right? It's like, it's not that hard, guys. They can if they really wanted to, but they don't. And this whole system management stuff. So we've covered a huge amount of really interesting stuff. I know we've got to wrap up because of life and business. If people want to learn more about you and the Institute, what's the best thing you'd love them to sort of take on from this, and what's the next step?
Well, please, you know that we are very open, very easy. We love to speak to people. So the best thing is LinkedIn, Ernesto Sirolli. And I would encourage people to both watch some of the TED Talks. I would like them to, if they become more interested in the theory of development, what I call development in response, if they are interested in, if they work for communities, organizations, if they are civic leaders, they could read Ripples from the Zambesi, which is my first book. If they are entrepreneurs and they want to learn about, how to set up the company, they should read my second book, How to Start a Company and Ignite Your Life, where I talk about the Trinity of Management. Otherwise, just reach out on LinkedIn, or it's very, very easy, Ernesto at Sirolli.com. And, we are very good at staying in touch with people, and I try to respond, as you know, Simon.
I was shocked. Literally, it was like, I can't believe he's responding to me. And that was my biggest thing. My biggest lesson was like, actually ask questions and reach out, just like I should have done that years ago. What's sort of the one thing, that sort of Ernesto nugget of simple that you really want them to remember?
Don't you ever, 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 ever confuse intelligence for education, ever. Intelligence is in the DNA. And so respect people who have no formal education. When I won, everybody knows who Tony Robbins is. Anthony Robbins, the guy, I'm not particularly excited by motivational speakers, but I knew somebody who knew the beginning of the career of Anthony Robbins, and I asked, how did Anthony Robbins get started? I was told that Anthony Robbins had started, was his hairdresser.
Interesting.
The hairdresser. So don't ever, ever underestimate the intelligence of people around you. It could be that the person who could save your business is somebody who's not formally educated in marketing, but he has a phenomenal personality. And it could be your second cousin. And it could be your second cousin who could be an accountant who is semi-retired or is bored to tears, who will love to come and help you in your startup. So tell people what you need. Be honest. Every meeting, and now Christmas is coming, every meeting, every friend of yours, tell your friend, I need somebody to help me with communication marketing. I need somebody to take my ideas and check my ideas with friends, families. Would you buy this service? Would you use this app? And that's the beginning. The beginning is break out of your solitude.
I love it. As every time I talk to you, I'm touched by the sort of, there's like a spiritual and a business side. And not in a weird way, not in like in a religious way, but you're doing this because you're doing this. Like, you're not being paid for the podcast. You're doing it because it's what you want to do, and there's who you are that's real. And the big thing I've come back to after 15 years into this weird chaos world of pretend entrepreneurs around the world marketing stuff is real people who actually care and show up and connect in that way. And I want to really thank you for that. And, generally, even before we'd spoken, the TED Talk made a difference, not in some like, I learned a funny story, but generally this lesson of listening. And I hope that as life goes on, we get to connect more. I hope we get to share more and really do what you touched on around what this entrepreneurship journey is really about. As we wrap up the show today, Ernesto, again, thank you. Thank you, Martha, for making this possible. And is there anything else you want to say before we close the show? The final words are yours, sir.
No, thank you very much. Thank you to you. At my age, the only thing left is legacy. I would hate to see all this work that we've done in so many countries in the world go to waste because nobody picks up these ideas of shut up, listen, help people to understand who they are first, and then form teams. So every opportunity that I have is welcome. And the fact that you still think about our conversations years ago, it's very rewarding. So I want to thank you and thank the audience. I mean, it would be lovely to get some feedback from the audience when you broadcast. Please, if there is any feedback, let me know, okay?
100%. Reach out. And I'm going to take on what you just said, right? So, and actually very much align with what you just said. My biggest challenge in the last few years, I've lost some amazing teachers and friends. Catherine, who was my Thai teacher, to Catherine Allen, Dan Doherty, and this real wisdom, lived experience that's drifting. So there's not a lack of projects and people. There is a lack of these marketing, these M's. There's definitely a lack of F people. I'm a really good chartered accountant. I'm not the guy to manage micro budgets and capital. But there's so many great people with this great wisdom and there's opportunities to share. And let's find a way to do that. So I'm very much open. And I know that I need help to find ways to help people meet people like Ernesto and get these simple ideas across so they can really grow and scale what they're doing. And as you said so clearly, it isn't about making £1 million a bank account. It's about having a quality of life and helping people. And if we do that, the world gets better. And we're going to suffer. We are who we are, and we get a bit better for it. Thank you for being who you are, and we'll see you next time.
Bye-bye, Simon. Thanks.
Once again, I'm Simon Hedley. Thank you for listening to this episode of Pause, Stop, Reset, which is brought to you by the team at simonx.com and published by thesimpleidea.com. So you get maximum value and to access all the bonuses and gifts, make sure to head to pause.reset.com, register and explore the portal. And if you're looking for great people, check out onesmartnetwork.com. If you've enjoyed the show, do give us a positive review, subscribe, and share this episode with friends. I can't wait to share our next episode with you. Till then, remember you can always choose to pause, stop, reset.